My name is Stuart Wood, and welcome to the latest in the International CONFEX webinar series. We are actually returning to the first webinar where we spoke to our three panelists today, the road back to live. So we want to get a forecast from our panelists on 6 months down the line, how we think things have changed and where we see things moving forward. So we're joined today by Peter Jones, CEO of 19 Group, Raphael Sofaluk, CEO and founder of the UK Black Business Show, and Mike Seaman, CEO of Raccoon Events. So if our panelists could all introduce themselves and say hello.
Hello.
Oh, I mean, I've already introduced you there.
Just introduced.
Made your job easy for you, haven't I? Well, thanks for joining us, guys. So I think it's an interesting topic. I mean, when Martin Fuller, our editorial director, spoke to you 6 months ago, things were probably looking a bit more optimistic. You know, we had Mike, I think you even said that you had some plans for February and that was your forecast for when things would come back. And now here we are in February, and it's a bit like we're climbing the mountain and the peak just keeps getting a little bit further away from us.
Yeah, that new variant, eh?
So just to start, I mean,
the Olympia variant or the NEC one? Sorry.
How has everybody been doing since October, just generally, from a business point of view or from a personal point of view? What have you been up to? What are you keeping busy with? Raphael, can we start with you?
Yeah, I've been, so I've expanded on the UK Black Business Show. So this year we're planning on doing a whole week. So we're doing a UK Black Business Week, covering a number of different streams: leadership, finance, technology. So really just been, keeping busy, working on that, making it even bigger this year. Hopefully it will be a live event. And also I've got a book coming out in June, which has been published by Penguin. So I'm busy working on that as well. But yeah, really just been working hard since the last time we caught up, really just adapting to the changes. I think I was hopeful as well to be doing something kind of earlier on in this year, like a small event. But yeah, that's me since our last chat.
Mike, Peter, how about you?
Go on, Peter, you go first.
Oh, love you, Mike. Yeah, it's a roller coaster of a lifetime, right? And since October, much better. Pre-October, there was a time, Stuart, last year, midway through the first lockdown, I read about May, June, where even I wobbled momentarily after 25 years of believing and of being an event evangelist, right? Even I wobbled, could the future of physical events be in question? Because we were getting absolutely bombarded left, right and center by digital pundits, saying the future of live events is either over or it's going to have to be hybrid, they'll have to adapt. And there was just that moment where I just paused and just wondered, about the future. And then since probably about October, it's like we gave the car keys to the digital world for a year and said, there's the wide open goal, go on, you've got it. And it absolutely hasn't worked. That said, as we've said many times with 19, we've embraced digital, we're doing lots of digital, we're doing lots of webinars, weeks, all sorts of stuff that are great to support and build the data and branding of the shows. But it's been really over the article just for Christmas from The Economist. Anyone listening to this that hasn't read it, I'll post it again on LinkedIn, go and read it. So The Economist said that the exhibition sector is probably the worst affected sector globally. We thought airlines had a bad time, but they were still flying. And even when they can't fly people, they're flying cargo. For us, absolutely zero. And as of today, it's still zero. But as The Economist said, for the sector that was affected the hardest will return the hardest. And I can tell you now, the people I talk to, the CEOs of the venues, the other big companies, we're private equity backed. So for once in my life, I've got access to some, intelligence. Goldman Sachs of the world, they're all of the same view. Look at the view from the city analysts on Informa. Even though even this year they're still really struggling, long range view, strong. For now their position is hold, but for the future is strong. So they're going to come back really strongly. So long-winded way of saying, how am I now? Really good.
How about you, Mike? How do you see the weather forecast looking? We got some storms coming in, or are you a bit more optimistic?
I'm still relentlessly positive. I think I felt really confident when we last had this around that February dateline, and it did feel like the stuff that we were getting through from the AEO was sort of going to lead us to that. And then obviously everything was like about face with the new variant over the Christmas period and everything shut down. It was like pretty brutal, but actually it was more just worrisome than actually anything that had any impact to us as a business. Actually, we've grown. We know what to do now. So if the show can't run, we roll it on. We offer our exhibitors their money back if they want it. The majority of them say no. We want to stay with you. We want to go on, and then we give them some alternative opportunities to work with us in a digital framework. That doesn't mean virtual. I've got much more accomplished we've got more accomplished as a business within the digital space and sort of monetizing our existing assets around data and things like that. But I've learned that I don't like virtual, and it doesn't suit my particular customer groups or me. But as Peter said, there is a absolutely massive pent-up demand for experiences, and that's what we offer. We have 16,000 people signed up for an event in June. We signed, I think it was 2,000 people a day over the Christmas period across our shows. People are desperate, and we're consumer shows, so consumers are desperate to get back to these experience-led events like ours. Whether, when, and how we can deliver them, I'm not sure yet, but I think I'm okay with that, and our customers are okay with that. So I feel pretty good. I feel pretty happy, and I think we're all going to be fine.
So you mentioned that visitors are kind of raring to go, and Peter, I agree with you that the things that have been cancelled the longest are going to be the things that bounce back the quickest. But do you all think that exhibitors have as much of an appetite to come back, or do you think they're still concerned? And actually, I should just, before I just ask you that question, I should just say, if anybody has any questions, just we have a Q&A section on the bottom. If you just ask a question in there, we'll come to your questions as we go. So just keep them coming in as we go. But yeah, so how do you guys see that one?
Who's that to, Stuart?
Raphael, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I think in terms of domestic events, if your event is solely it has a UK audience in terms of exhibitors, I think they're pretty optimistic. It just depends on what part of the year it is. So we've got our UK Black Business Week and show in Q4. And our exhibitors are really confident in that happening. We've had sign-ups over Christmas and January, and not only that, attendees as well, they're buying their tickets. So I think there is definitely huge exhibitor confidence. It's just in regards to what part of the year you're running it. And of course, international shows is a bit different because we don't know about travel. So exhibitors, if you've got exhibitors who are coming from abroad, it's a bit hard to kind of get a bit more confidence in them, but certainly kind of domestically and our UK exhibitors, there's a lot of confidence.
Peter?
So we've got an event running the first week of September at the NEC, which is just under 1,000 exhibitors. And to give you an idea as to exhibitor appetite, that event has been postponed 3 times. And I completely agree with something Mike just said. There's been a process through this whole pandemic of just getting used to it from an organizer point of view and from exhibitor point of view as well. I remember that first decision that, having to postpone. I haven't in 25 years. I've never postponed an event. And the thought of having to postpone was horrific. And talk about that Imodium moment. You're waiting for the tsunami of refunds and we were amazed at how supportive the exhibitors were. And through 3 lots of postponements to September, we've retained over 90% of the business. And since Christmas, just before Christmas, from the end of September until today, we've done about 1.5 million of brand new business on those shows. So that's exhibitors booking in the middle of a pandemic. Now, if you ask me today, are the September shows running? We can't give a definitive answer, and we say the same to our exhibitors, but they are still booking. And my word of hope to other organisers and the guidance, the view I would offer, don't put your spades away. Just keep on going out, just keep on digging away for the business, because I'm telling you, Stuart, exhibitors want shows as much as the organisers do. They are the most powerful way to build lead generation, and those exhibitors need it more than ever. And we've got exhibitors, even as today, that are continually new bookings into September, and they know if it can't run in September, it will just have to roll on. And as Mike said, I think people are just getting used to it now.
Yeah,
I think, like you said, that first wave of postponements, it was kind of shocking. But especially from a media point of view, we have news stories come in of, oh, there's been a postponement of an event. It's, oh my god, it's been postponed, and then that becomes completely the norm, and every event is postponed. But I suppose that's the way it is. Mike, how about you? What's the appetite from the exhibitors at the National Running Show?
I think great. I mean, across all of our events, we actually launched 2 events in one of the lockdowns. So we launched the National Snow Show, we launched the Run Show USA. Both of which are on critical path and set to do their number. So great. The other shows, exactly as Peter said, when you move the shows, you sort of understand, you get to figure out how good your event is, and whether people actually like it or they just turn up because it's the sort of the thing that they do every year. And the majority of people have stuck with us and rolled money across. Some have even taken bigger stands on the new floor plans for the next year. So it's actually been brilliant for us. My personal view is that a show delivers now the biggest cut through that it will ever deliver, because the opportunity for a face-to-face engagement with the customer has been turned off for a year, and now you can do it. So the best platform for that, in my view, in order to do it and do it on a broader scale, is an exhibition. So I think when they do come back, and my desire is to be right at the sharp end of that. As soon as they open up, I want to be out, because I think that's where the big opportunity is. And I think that's a mindset shift for us as an industry. Rather than playing it safe, let's try and be the first one out and hit that sort of new wave of optimism and enthusiasm for live.
Absolutely. And before we get to that point, I suppose, how do you guys see have your business models changed over the last year and a half or so? Do you think that your businesses are running in a different way? Raphael, can we start with you again?
Yeah, so we've certainly started looking at, improving our digital activity, what we do to help, promote our exhibitors, not just at the show, but just throughout the year. So, thinking about how we can give them, a presence on our site, how we can promote them through, webinars, etc., and, brochures, etc., that you can download and they can get lead generation of that stuff. So, our model hasn't changed. Exhibitions and live events is still a key part of our events, but we've, definitely added that extra digital strategy to cater towards people who actually want to meet their consumer all year round, which, we probably should have been doing anyway. So it's been a positive in kind of that aspect.
And Peter, how about you? I know you said you were going to drop some controversial opinions about hybrid events.
I did. That was in the green room, though. Oh, should I just be controversial here as well? I don't believe in them. I just don't. I'm just going to go first. We've done lots of digital stuff and webinars, which has been great for keeping the conversation going, building data. But the whole, the virtual event world, all the pundits of mid last year that, it's been tried, they don't work. The organisers that have tried them is counterproductive. And there's someone that I respect greatly, Doug Emsley from Tarsus. He's my old boss from 20 odd years ago. In Tarsus, that is a significant operation now, Charterhouse backed. And as he said, as soon as their exhibitions in China got back up and running properly, which I think was about 5-6 months ago, because China are just ahead of us on this curve. As soon as they got back up and running, people simply stopped talking about digital. That's not to say we don't do it and we incorporate it. As like Raphael said, we're doing more digital to enhance the exhibitions, but stop talking about this pivot and, hybrids and virtuals. What we did during the pandemic, which I'm talking as if it's over, it feels like we're coming more towards the end, but during the worst of it is we realized that we sit on top of a pre-registration for our shows. So for our NEC series, we postponed 6 weeks before, and we had over 20,000 pre-registered visitors. And we thought, what a shame. There's a gold mine of information, of people, data, intelligence, demographics. We know why they're coming, what they're looking to buy, and how much they're looking to spend. And we can't do anything with that. So we launched a Connect Plus service 6 months ago. We've now built a team of 4 people, and they've got headsets like Mike. And they're calling through all of the pre-registrations, and they're just constantly mining. Look, you were coming to the show. What did you need? Specifically, what type of problem have you got? And then they're marrying up and they're connecting them with exhibitors. And that's been an incredible way that we've adjusted our model to make us actually really useful, not just for the 2 days when we roll the shutters up, but the year in between, that year-round engagement. And that's worked really well. And that's also worked really well for making yourself very valuable to your exhibitors whilst you're waiting for the shows.
And so you think that's something that's going to outlast the pandemic, that you'll have this kind of continual engagement with people outside of the event and outside of the couple of weeks that it might be running?
There's a tendency for organisers to sometimes be a little bit lazy. If you run big successful shows, you just pitch up on the day, roll up the shutters, and by random huge queues of people come in, fill the halls up, and somehow the exhibitors are busy and they rebook, job done. And then you do it again next year. This is definitely something we would continue. So year round, we're doing the connections and we're building the intelligence, because at future shows, when we roll those shutters up, we know exactly who they are, what they're buying, and we've already had a dialogue with those visitors. So we're definitely, Connect Plus is a side of our business. We will definitely keep going.
Gotcha. And Mike, how do you think that has your business model changed in any way, or has it just taken a slight diversion to the side and now it's back on the main road?
A bit of both, really. I'm just glad that I got this far in the call without getting grief from my headset. But thanks, Peter. I think the short answer is yes, it has changed. I think when we did have a very live event first strategy, and we still do. But our live event first strategy was probably at the expense of our digital assets. And I think one of the things that we've been able to do during the various lockdowns is actually spend time doing stuff that was always in the Devo pile. So working up we're launching a new website called outsideandactive.com that goes live next month. We've monetized our databases, and we've sort of done a lot of stuff digitally that we wouldn't have done before. We did try virtual events, which I would never have tried before, and I probably won't try again, but not in the conventional format. So for example, when we're launching this Outside and Active website, that's a year-round website, but we're going to run a week-long festival of content, which will be 3 hours every night of live content within our website platform. And it kind of feels like these are areas that we're experimenting in that we probably wouldn't have done if there hadn't been a lockdown. And there's an appetite for it. There's a huge appetite for it. I share Peter's skepticism for the end of live and it's all going virtual, because that's just not true. I think we've been given all of these extra tools for our toolkit, and we can get them out at various times. I fundamentally disagree with hybrid events. I think benefits of an online experience versus the benefits of a live experience are very different. If you try and mush them together, then actually you kind of, one of them just doesn't quite deliver on its benefits as it should. So I think for me, it's about keeping them separately, but for the change to our business.
We just shut this webinar down right now. Just
But I think there's some great stuff that we can learn from this in terms of, and communicating face to face with clients is so much easier now. Requesting a Zoom meeting with a client is a much more efficient way for our salespeople to engage with their clients, and is now the norm.
There's a great illustration of that. The lovely words you just used, mushing, hybrid, and mushing together.
It's a very technical term, Peter.
An example, has anyone done a hybrid Zoom call? So as people returning to our office last year between lockdowns, our Zoom, if everyone's on the same Zoom call, it's okay, bit staggered. But when you got half the people back in the office and the other half working from home, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, it is.
And digital and mushing doesn't work.
No, and
because inevitably you've got somebody's got a shrunk resolution and their head's been cut off, and then someone is in the back and you can't hear what they're saying at all. It is a bit.
And you actually divide people apart because of you're either in the digital crowd or the live crowd, whereas we're about bringing people together. That's what events are great for. So
while we're kind of talking about stuff, I mean, all three of you are in charge of managing teams and managing people. How have you found that experience during lockdown? Has it changed? How do you keep people motivated? How do you keep sales staff motivated? Then they're kind of thriving on that face-to-face interaction. Is it difficult to keep teams motivated during this current situation?
Who do you want to go to first?
Oh, sorry, Raphael. Sorry, John.
Yeah, sure. I think in terms of myself, I think it's just, good news is keeping them motivated. We've launched the UK Black Business Week during this period, but also there is an appetite still for our show. And where there's an appetite, there's the opportunity for salespeople to make money. So I think it's just kind of, still kind of checking in with them, checking in with your team, still kind of having, social environments where, not all always having business calls, but having, times where you can just meet up and chat with your team and just kind of find out how they're doing. But yeah, in terms of motivation, it hasn't been too hard, just because we've had a lot going throughout the last few weeks. But certainly, of course, for shows that aren't selling, I can see how it can be very kind of demotivating to a sales team, especially when you're, worried, thinking about your commission, etc. But yeah, it 100% it will vary from, event organizer, how motivated their staff are, I think.
And Mike, how about you? Switching up the order this time, keeping you on your toes.
Oh, I like the way you did that. I mean, I'm nervous to say this because I'm quite lucky with the guys I've got in my team. They don't need that. They've been brilliant. They've actually motivated me on occasions. They're so in it. We're like a little family here. There's only 12 of us in the business. We're not a big company, but the guys, they're just awesome. They've kind of taken care of that themselves, but it's a uniquely pressurized environment. I think homeschooling, we have a lot of people who've got families, including myself, at home, and that makes everything difficult. And I think flexibility around working hours and conditions, and just trying to do the right thing by people. We always try and be ethical. Like we tried to avoid the whole furlough thing. We tried to make sure that everyone was looked after financially. We tried to just not worry if people had to miss a day here and there and things like that. And I think if you give people that a level of trust, they pay you back in spades. And my lot have been amazing. But I get it. Like, loads of my mates in the industry are working on products that are really suffering, and that's brutal. And it's absolutely horrific. And I wouldn't know how to help those guys because it's pretty horrible.
I can only imagine how difficult it must be to be a parent throughout all this and homeschooling on top of a lot of stressful
My wife
work.
tells me it's really hard, but I just go to the office.
Are you in the office now, or is that your house?
I'm in the office. I come in once a week to get
Are you in the bathroom?
No, this is the meeting room. Easy.
It's very swish.
And Peter, you said you were upstairs hiding away from the chaos downstairs.
I am 2 floors away from the border crossing downstairs. Homeschooling should never be pushed on humanity ever again. There needs to be a Geneva Convention after this where we all sign up, never homeschooling again. So with Mike, really, and I guess we're quite lucky. We've got a team of people at 19 who are incredible. They've been really resilient. And I think going into this, it was important. First of all, how do we kind of keep that spirit and community going? Well, we every other day we're all on, the entire business is on a Zoom call. But they're not just Zoom calls to talk about, run through sales, what's the pipeline, marketing. One of the most important things we learned at the beginning was just empathy, and it's just to actually say to all of your team, it's okay to feel shit. If I can say that on a live webinar, it's okay to be really down. And a lot of our Zooms don't necessarily talk about, launching or selling. They're talking about how people are coping at home and what mechanisms they're using, and to help each other, to talk about the struggles. What else we've had Zooms talk about Netflix, because we're all human, right? And we've got kids in the background, and there's arguing, and we're all worried about the future. So that really, in a crisis, empathy, and then making sure everyone is included, even though they're sat at home. We've still taken a lot of effort to make sure, even like the launch of the Connect Plus team, every step of the way of launching that, we explain it to all of the staff in the company, and they've all got a chance to feed in, question the status quo, and really feel a part of the journey. Whether you're stuck at home or in the office, you're all part of this journey.
Absolutely. And just as a last topic I wanted to touch on before we move into some audience questions, recruitment is quite an interesting one. So I had an interview with somebody recently where they were saying how in the best of times, events have sometimes struggled to recruit people because it's not the clearest career path or education wise. And now that young people particularly are seeing the kind of instability that events, so the financial instability, events being cancelled, do you think that once we've moved past all this pandemic and all the very immediate problems people are facing now, that we'll have issues further down the line with recruitment and with encouraging talented young people to join the industry? Raphael?
Yeah, so I actually have kind of a different view on it. So a lot of what we're doing as well with the UK Black Business Week is so we help a number of corporations like Facebook, Goldman Sachs, JP, on how to create a diverse and inclusive workforce. So for me, I feel like actually this is a huge opportunity for the event industry to address some of the problems in terms of diverse hiring. There's an opportunity to kind of right some of the wrongs. I think everyone knows kind of the event industry is probably not the most diverse and inclusive industry. So I think it's an opportunity for employers to actually, build workforces that are more representative of society today. So I think that there's a huge opportunity in terms of that, actually kind of being a bit creative and thinking out of the box and looking at different places where you can recruit talent. Because for me, there still has been quite an appetite for people who want to kind of join our team, who are looking for jobs within the event industry. And the live event industry has always been a buzzing sector, and I don't see that going away. I don't see there being less people, wanting to join it.
What kinds of changes would you like to see in terms of the hiring process or making it more inclusive, diverse?
I think first of all, senior leaders you need to have buy-in from senior leaders. So if someone at the top is not someone who wants to be diverse and inclusive, there's no way it can trickle down. But also making sure you've got an equitable hiring process. So for example, I'll give you an example. If a Black woman's going for an interview, and in each four of the stages she's been interviewed by a white middle-aged man, then is that interview process fair? Maybe not. People generally, sometimes we have those unconscious biases, so we tend to gravitate towards people who remind us of ourselves. So ensuring that hiring process is fair, and having different representatives on each level is making sure that the right person is hired for the job solely on merit. So that, and then just thinking a bit smart. Are you using the same old recruiter for every job? Go into shows like the UK Black Business Show to find talent, etc.
Peter, how about you? What do you think about recruitment going forwards?
I think it really just taps into what Raphael was just saying, because this has also been a great opportunity to do things that maybe you're normally too distracted on the run up to your next show to focus on. But we've gone back to the diversity and inclusion, the Gender of 19 group. And over the last few weeks, we've spent quite a bit of time with our team, with an outside agency to really review. We want a real mix of talent and background and skills and capability, and just some real vibrance and colour and personality, a good mix of that in 19 group. So we've been focusing on building that and our, cultural statement for the business to really make sure we are diverse. I don't think this industry is a very diverse industry. Alison Jackson, our MD, has been championing the Women in Exhibitions Network. We're also championing the Ernst & Young Secure Futures, which is about getting young talent into the security sector. And we're going to be having placements in 19 group. So it's been a really good opportunity as a result of this pandemic to have a bit more time. And then will people want to come back to events? Will they remember, oh, hang on, this is not a good sector because it's, it's dangerous. And if there's another pandemic, I think human beings are actually forget quite quickly and can be quite fickle and move on. If you look at 9/11, after 9/11, for a very short period, no one wanted to get on an airplane. And then within a few months, they were almost just running back at normal capacity. I don't think so. I think once we're back up and running, and look with the success of the vaccine rollout, as Mike said, we do have a few dodgy variants around Olympia. But with the success of the vaccine rollout and now, the drugs and medicines to treat the virus, as soon as this becomes a bad flu and the world moves on, I think people will forget very quickly. And you just can't come away from the power of events. Just remember, guys, you can't Amazon an exhibition.
It's a nice idea that we could just forget about COVID, pretend that it didn't happen, we'll just move on, put it in the history books. Mike, how about you?
On the D&I point, I think it's really interesting. I think that, just to echo the points, we have a D&I lead now as a business, and a small business. I think it's just a really good to see that shift in the exhibition industry, and that's going to change, which I think is going to be good for everyone. I think into the new recruits into the sector, no, I don't think it's gonna be a problem at all. What we do is cool. It's really good. It's a really fun thing. Exhibitions are fun. They're exciting. You can progress quickly. Events are profitable. You know, we've all we're all still here, and we've been through, you know, pretty much the worst crisis you could ever possibly imagine for our sector.
Not in 2020.
But we.
They're
not in
not
what?
profitable. They're not in 2020. Are they profitable?
No, but as in their businesses are, we're still running, we're still able to operate, and even when we can't run, we're able to find ways to continue. And I think that's actually really a testament to the ingenuity in our sector, and the longevity of it, really. And I think, you know, I'm not seeing people saying that they don't want to come and apply for jobs. We're advertising for 2 new jobs at the moment. I'm not saying people saying, oh, we don't want to come and work in events businesses because they're not going to be around anymore. People are just excited to come and do cool stuff like we do.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that you all are optimistic about the opportunities as well as some of the potential challenges, definitely. I think we're just going to have a look at some of the questions in the chat. We've got a few. We've got one from James Lee. It's not really a question. He says, nice corporate branding, Mike. I'm not sure if he's talking about your t-shirt or is that the bathroom wall behind you?
I mean, it's either that or the headset. It's my part-time job as an air traffic controller. Thanks, James. How are you, mate?
Mike Doyle asked, are you all selling with COVID secure floor plans, with wider aisles, etc.? Or are you booking people in on regular floor plans and advising that these may change closer to the time? Raphael?
We're selling it. Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. Well, Mike, do you want to start there, Mike? Go on.
Yeah, we're selling on COVID secure floor plans with the understanding it's better to bring them in rather than push them out.
Gotcha. Raphael?
Yeah, very similar. So we've got the floor plan. That's COVID secure. That's using the all secure standard guidelines as well. But if things change, then we can kind of move it closer. Then even better.
Makes sense to play it safe and then expand if you can. As Peter, is it the same for you?
Not so much. So again, the 1,000 exhibitors at the NEC in the first week of September, and it's fairly congested that second half of the year. Just trust me, at the NEC, there really is not a lot of room to go out. So our aisles are 3 meters, on average. There's a couple of dodgy 2 meter ones, but they're generally 3 meters. And I've been talking to the CEOs of the big 3 venues over the last couple of weeks. Why the hell should an exhibition centre have to go 4 metre aisles? They're not 4 metres in the supermarkets, and the supermarkets have been open over the last year. You don't get 4 metre aisles getting onto aeroplanes. So why should exhibitions, even though we know exhibitions is at a really rough deal because the government don't recognise us, and despite the really good efforts of the EIA, they still don't recognise us. Well, when they do recognise this, why should it be? Because we get penalised for having to have 4 metre aisles. So taking my shows as an example, come September, you would hope if the country has all had 2 jabs by August, says the head of the UK vaccination programme, if that's true, then it's as long as we're cautious and there's face masks and there's hygiene, we can look at one-way systems and the rest of the all secure standards. But are we going to then go out to 4 metres? That's not in our plan to do so. No, nor do we think we should do.
I think one of the interesting points about the all secure standard is it's dynamic and it's risk assessed. So what Peter's planning is probably absolutely achievable on that dateline, because what we would come back with, let's say things open up in a tiering system like they did beforehand, will inevitably not be the end result. It won't be the all secure expo for those of you who saw it, which was, if that's what a trade show looks like, count me out. But it's a model to demonstrate what can be achieved under the worst circumstances, and the all secure standards allow us over time to decide what is appropriate for the risk at that point in time. I think that's really important. You don't need to fix your position right now. You can actually change to what is relevant on the time, and it's moving so fast. There's no point in trying to fix your position now.
And if you speak to the venues, and I won't mention the names, but a fairly senior level, the 3 of the bigger venue, and you ask them today, come on guys, give me some kind of indicator what we need to be thinking for the first week of September. No idea. And the venues are not to be blamed for that, and neither are the government, because no one's got any idea. as you just said, this thing is changing by the day. Even in the morning, you read the first 5 articles in the Times and they all contradict each other. Social distancing till 2022. And then, no, hang on a second, it's all going to be removed by April, says Tory backbenchers.
Saturday that came out, didn't it? They said
Yeah,
everything done by the end of April.
So I posted on LinkedIn, and then the next day it's been on 2022. So where did that come from?
Another question from James Lee. I think I'll just let anybody who wants to answer this jump in. What are you guys doing to build the confidence from your exhibitors and from your attendees? How are you kind of reassuring them that, well, you know, your shows are going to be safe and secure and etc.?
I mean, in terms of safe and secure, I think you have to refer back to the All Secure standard, so which is a government approved set of guidance that we would have to follow if we were to open up. In terms of improving confidence about the shows running and things like that, I mean, I've already talked about how we offer full refunds, etc., for shows that don't go ahead, and I think that's quite important. And so we say that we allow you to book with confidence because there's no risk. Why would you not? But in terms of the safety of the show, I think that's an individual decision that the organisers have to take. But you can't take chances with this thing. There are rules, there are regulations, and it's going to be tightly governed. So we won't be allowed to open if it's not safe.
Yeah, I think that certainly the message that we're sending out is that, yeah, of course we're looking at, you know, the All Secure guidelines, but also if there's any risk of, you know, any danger of the event not being safe, we would not put on the event anyway. So I think by now, I think our exhibitors and our attendees trust us that we wouldn't be putting on an event that is not safe for them. So we will be taking all the precautions to make sure that it's safe for everyone to attend, regardless of if we had, you know, these guidelines.
Absolutely. And Gavin Frost also asked, how are you planning to do seating plans? Are you going to have similar, is it going to be much more spaced out when you have content and speakers, or is it going to be the same as before? I imagine it's going to have to be a bit more spaced out. How are you kind of planning all that, Raphael?
Who knows?
Yeah. So yeah, funny enough, so we postponed our show this year, and we normally have our live theatre room is like a 700 seater. And with the spacing out, I think it could fit something like 250, which was ridiculous, and it just didn't make sense. So yeah, like Mike was saying, I think we're hoping by that time that we're able to kind of use that space properly. But yeah, there's the opportunity to have, you know, other rooms where we can kind of stream these sessions on the big screen as well. So yeah, we're looking at kind of a number of different opportunities.
Yeah, can I come back to that, the safety thing and how safe of our shows and what we're doing to make them as safe as possible? I think it's important to recognise that we can't guarantee that nobody will catch COVID in one of our shows if they can run. Even under All Secure standards, if you took that to the full Monty, full fat version, the one that we all checked out of, but even then you can't guarantee people safety. And we've got really good experience of this because we've run some of the biggest security shows in the world. So we run a show in the heart of London. We used to run a show called Counter Terror Expo. 8,000 visitors coming to that show, and they're all heads of police and counter-terrorism. And that show had a significant risk on it. And everyone knew that. When you come and queue outside Olympia for an hour to get into a show, and then you're crammed inside with heads of counter-terrorism from all over the world in the middle of London, you know, whilst there's lots of interesting terrorist groups that would find that quite an interesting target, as an organizer, you can't guarantee it's safe, but you put enough layers of protection in place is proportionate to the risk. So we'd have 100% screening on the entrance, well, we still do at our shows. The barrier running around Olympia, you know, the vehicle impact barrier, surveillance outside, increased police presence, and you've shown your audience you've done enough not to, like any iconic site around London is vulnerable to a terrorist attack, but citizens still go. Because as long as they feel the authorities have done enough to keep you as safe as possible, then people will still come. So come September, or Raphael in November, can we guarantee by then COVID has disappeared, or if it's still around, would you not catch it out show? No one can guarantee that, but like Mike said, you've got to look at that All Secure standards, and you need to measure the risk at that time and put in place enough layers of the onion to keep it as safe as is reasonable.
And we do that already with capacity numbers and fire and things like that. This is just another element that we have to consider when we're planning out large-scale events. I think going back to the seating question, we've allowed more space, but I'd like to bring it in. I think it depends on the kind of show that you think that your audience would accept. We talk in here about hugs and high fives. We do consumer shows, and really, if you can't hug and high five at our show, it's probably not one of our shows. So we'd rather not run it. We'd rather roll it a year and come back and deliver something that represented our brand well and that people loved, rather than when everyone was walking around with poles trying to push each other away and masks and it wasn't busy and I'd just rather not run that. But if your audience, it depends in the sector that you're in and the space that you're in, because I think in some B2B environments, they will accept that kind of spaced out seating environment, and they will work on that premise. So I think that's dynamic to you as an organizer, depending on your market.
Brilliant. I just want to say thanks to everybody in the chat. We had quite a lot of questions there, actually. But we're trying to keep it to about 45 minutes. So I'm not going to be able to get to everybody's question. But thank you for submitting them. Just as a closer, I just was hoping to get a bit of positivity from all of you. Is there any one positive thing that you'll definitely take away from this pandemic situation? It could be from a business point of view or from a personal point of view. What have been some positives from the past 6 months or even longer than that since the first webinar? Mike, we start with you this time.
Yeah, I think digital sort of becoming, that's definitely a bonus for us. It's given us a new revenue stream. And I think our team, the way we've come together as a family, I think we're all like wearing the badge now, and we'll all remember that time when we all got through it together. And I think it's brought us really close together as a team, and I don't think that will go. And I think that's really cool.
Nice one. Peter?
I think the pandemic has really played into our hands as event organisers, because it's not until something's taken away from you, you appreciate its true value. And it's not until humans are forced apart like magnets that you see how keen people are to come back together. Contact is one of the three, the core requirements we need: food, water, contact. Take any one of those three away and we've got a real problem. So I think this pandemic has proved just how powerful live face-to-face events really are.
And Raphael?
Yeah, I think kind of just like what Mike said about his team becoming closer. I think in general it's brought together the whole event industry. I think the whole event industry is even more closer to each other, and even supporting each other even more. So I think that's definitely a positive thing, and I definitely see a lot more kind of cross collaboration between event organisers now coming out of this pandemic, and just learning to making sure that we've got our digital strategy on point, and of course the word that everyone uses, resilience. I think it's taught us all to be resilient, and to think on our feet as well, and to also just be a bit more kind of caring towards exhibitors and attendees. I think a lot of us are a lot more understanding of each other's situation. So I think it's brought out the positive part of the events industry.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Raphael, Peter, and Mike for joining. Not the penultimate. I think we've got a couple more webinars in our CONFEX series, but it's been really interesting to hear from you and to hear your thoughts. And hopefully, at the next real life CONFEX, we might have some hugs and high fives. I might go with a high five if you guys don't like. But
I'm coming in for a hug, mate.
Hey Stuart, the Raccoon Events corporate branding is available on Amazon for $9.99. I've just seen it.
Okay.
Buy that shirt and own it tomorrow.
Is that the wall or is that the t-shirt?
That's our digital strategy, selling these.
Pivoted to clothing.
Brilliant. Well, thank you guys for joining me, and thank you everybody for listening.